The sun was dipping low over my family's lakefront ranch, casting long shadows across the gravel drive, when trouble rolled in like a storm cloud. I was finishing a wrought iron gate I'd been welding for the local kids when the rumble of engines broke the evening's calm. 3 black SUVs pulled up in tight formation, their polished exteriors screaming money and menace. I killed the torch, flipped up my mask, and watched as a woman stepped out of the lead vehicle. Evelyn Harper, chairwoman of the Pinewood Homeowners Association, carried herself like she owned not just the neighborhood, but the whole damn county. Her tailored suit probably cost more than my truck, and her gray hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. She scanned my property with eyes that missed nothing, like a predator sizing up its prey. "Mr. Callahan," she called, her voice dripping with the kind of authority that expects obedience. "I'm Evelyn Harper, Pinewood HOA. We need to discuss your property's compliance issues." Behind her, 4 men in black polos and tactical pants fanned out, moving like they'd trained for war. I'd spent 12 years as a Navy SEAL. I knew hired muscle when I saw it. These weren't rent-a-cops. The bulges under their jackets and the way their eyes swept the perimeter told me they were carrying and knew how to use it. Evelyn approached, heels clicking like a metronome, clutching a folder thick with papers. "Your land's been flagged for wetland violations," she said, her smile as cold as a winter creek. "Your structures threaten our watershed, but I'm prepared to offer a generous buyout to help you relocate." It was a shakedown dressed up as charity, and the way she mentioned my old barn and the hidden creek path details no casual visitor would know set my instincts on edge. My land had been in the Callahan family for 3 generations, passed down to me when Uncle Tom died last year. I wasn't selling, and I told her so, keeping my tone calm but firm. Her eyes flickered at Tom's name, just for a moment, before her smile tightened. "You have 72 hours to reconsider, Mr. Callahan," she said, handing me a business card that felt heavier than it should. It'd be a shame if things got messy. As her convoy peeled out, I noticed her glance linger on the overgrown trail to the old mill. Something was off, and it wasn't just her fake smile. The next morning, I started digging. Evelyn's Pinewood Development Group was a maze of shell companies and offshore accounts, the kind of setup you use when you don't want anyone following the money. I set up trail cameras around my property, focusing on that mill trail she'd eyed. By dusk, one camera caught something chilling. Voices in Spanish, low and desperate, near the mill. "Ayudanos," one pleaded. "Nos tienen prisioneros." My blood ran cold. These weren't workers on a break. They were prisoners. Evelyn wasn't just after my land, she was hiding something worth killing for. I needed allies. Deputy Laura Bennett, whose father, the old sheriff, died in a suspicious crash last year, had a reputation for honesty. I met her at Maria's Diner, where the coffee was strong and the owner, Maria Alvarez, knew everyone's secrets. Laura slid into the booth, her eyes tired but sharp. "My dad was looking into missing migrant workers before his accident," she said, flipping through a worn notebook. The trail kept leading to that old mill. Her voice caught when she mentioned her father's failed brakes on a road he knew like his own hand. Later, I visited Pastor John Reed, a quiet man who'd settled in town a few years back. He moved like someone who'd seen combat, not just preached sermons. "Your Uncle Tom and I worked together," he admitted, pruning roses in his church garden. "We watch people like Evelyn. She's not who she seems." He handed me an encrypted phone, saying, "Use this when you're ready, but only if you're prepared for things to get serious." Evelyn's next move was a masterclass in manipulation. A local social media post, pinned by a concerned citizen, painted me as a bitter veteran blocking progress and jobs. The town hall meeting she called was a circus, half the crowd locals, half strangers who looked paid to boo. Evelyn took the stage, promising a Pinewood eco-resort that would transform our town, but pointedly called me out as the lone obstacle. When someone asked about environmental studies, she mentioned detailed geological surveys, expensive work that takes months, proving she'd been planning this long before she knocked on my door. That night, my uncle's old CB radio crackled on the emergency frequency Tom had marked. "Falcon Base, this is Bravo. Package tracking normal." The voice was clipped, professional, and used my old SEAL call sign. Tom had left me more than landed, left me a mission. The situation escalated fast. Evelyn's team tried to gas my cabin, rigging it to look like an accident. But Tom's paranoia had paid off. A hidden bunker under the root cellar held supplies, a military-grade radio, and a manual that changed everything. Page 47 listed coordinates, frequencies, and a note in Tom's handwriting. Ryan, you're not just my nephew. You're my replacement. This land was chosen for the mission. Evelyn's operation is bigger than you know. I was a sleeper agent, trained by my SEAL career and guided home by Tom's death. Evelyn wasn't just a crooked developer, she was tied to the Valdez cartel, running an organ trafficking ring that doubled as a bioweapon lab. The mill wasn't a resort site, it was a slaughterhouse. Laura, John, and I went in at midnight, using John's military-grade gear. Through night vision, we saw the horror. People herded from trucks into a makeshift medical facility, surgical lights glowing, victims processed like livestock. Organs were being harvested, infected with pathogens for terrorist buyers. Laura found her father's badge in an office, proof he'd been murdered for getting too close. We watched a young woman collapse, bloodied from surgery, and I faced a choice: blow our cover to save her or stay hidden to save dozens. My training won, but her death burned into my soul. Evelyn's mercenaries moved in hours later, surrounding our homes. I holed up in Tom's bunker, listening to their boots above me, knowing my dead man's switch set to upload evidence to federal servers kept me alive. I keyed the encrypted radio. Alpha Base, this is Falcon. Requesting immediate extraction. Code Black bioweapons and hostages. The response was instant. Falcon, assets in place. ETA 45 minutes. Helicopters roared in at dawn. FBI, SEALs, CDC, turning my ranch into a war zone. Evelyn's mercenaries, tough as they were, couldn't match the Fed's precision. I emerged, vested up, and faced Evelyn. You're under arrest for trafficking, murder, and bioterrorism, I said, flashing credentials I hadn't known I had. Her shock was palpable. She underestimated a simple welder. The raid was surgical. Teams hit the mill, an airstrip with bioweapon shipments, and Evelyn's fake business office. We found 47 victims, some barely alive, and evidence of years of organ harvesting. Tom's body, buried behind the mill, held his final report. Ryan, stop her. Make me proud. Evelyn's last stand came as she was cuffed, screaming about bioweapons already en route to 5 cities. But we'd intercepted those shipments, saline, not pathogens, swapped out by feds tracking her for weeks. 6 months later, Evelyn and her network were serving life sentences, their assets funding victim recovery. My ranch became a safe house and training hub for the Tom Callahan Foundation, helping survivors and teaching cops to spot threats like Evelyn's. Laura led an anti-trafficking task force. John's church became a covert intel hub, and Maria's diner grew into a community stronghold. I turned down a joint terrorism task force offer, choosing to stay where I could protect home. That night, as I watched the sunset from Tom's porch, the radio crackled. Falcon, new mission in Montana. Same playbook. I replied, Alpha Base, I'm where I belong. Home's my mission now. The fight had come to me, and I'd stood my ground not just for my land, but for every soul Evelyn tried to break. Some battles don't end with a headline. They end with a community that refuses to bow.